Shalom, everybody. Welcome to the Midrash portion of Reunion Roadmap. This is David Jones. With me is fellow elder for B'nai Yosef, Barry Phillips. Shalom, Barry.
Shalom, David.
We got some exciting stuff to get into this. Well, the word is always exciting when you get into it, but
Sure.
I don't want to say this is necessarily a joyful subject, but it's one that we really need to look at. There are things we find in Scripture that when we read it, we're like, oh, wow. Okay, but what does that mean for me? And we don't see the connection. We don't see there is a connect there, and not just things in past, but we're also looking things for present and prophecy, things for future as well. One of these things tie in very well with a date we've recently passed on the calendar, the 9th of Av. Now, many can say that these are just days, these are just times, these are just things, or these are just coincidences of all these things that have happened on the 9th of Av. And I'm not trying to get into everything that happened there, but just make a quick reference. This is a time where the first and second temple was destroyed on the same date. And
coincidence, right?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think God was trying to send a message. And so here we have these things that happen that we need to pay attention to. And I was recently reading in Zechariah, chapter 8, where it says that these fasts that we have of these times of mourning, these times of sorrow, will be turned to times of joy and rejoicing. Okay. One of these has 4 fast dates in there. One of them referenced is the 9th of Av. So what needs to happen to turn this day that is a sorrowful day that our Creator acknowledges as a date that is like that for us, but yet there's a day coming when this will be turned to times of joy? Well, we're still not like, oh, this is joyous because look at all these bad things that happen to us. It seems like there's not a connect there. But yet when we start looking at restoration, and when we say, what is our role in things to be restored? And Barry, you said something, and we're getting set up and getting ready to record, that I found extremely interesting, and it was about how we view history will greatly affect our role in the future.
Well, if we're not careful, we will look at what happened to our brother Yehuda and say, well, that's their history. It doesn't have anything to do with me and my history. Certainly, you and I personally have no family lineage that I'm aware of that was involved in an expulsion or a pogrom or the Shoah, the Holocaust. But if we fail to identify with that, is it not possible that you and I could become? Well, let me put it this way: is it not necessary for us to begin to identify in order for us to be rightly restored? How can I have a meaningful relationship with, say, my Native American brothers without some sense of appreciation and understanding of what they've gone through and what travesties have been inflicted upon them? Because that's part of their history. That's part of who they are. Our brother Yehuda, well, I just love the Jewish people. Well, why do you love the Jewish people? Well, they're God's chosen people. Well, why do you love them? And why does he love them? What is their history? What have they been through? Who are they? Our history shapes us. The way that our ancestors came to this country and whatever trials that they went through, whatever situations they had to persevere and endure through, that shapes us. That's part of our identity. And I think it's necessary in order for us to really relate to each other correctly have a meaningful bridge built between ourselves in order for us to properly be restored to one another, there has to be some sense of understanding who we are, where we've come from, and what our ancestors may have experienced along the way. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but I tried.
Well, I mean, it does because, we can say, oh, my past does not define me. Okay, but in a manner of speaking, it kind of does. Because it is the things that have happened to us that has brought us to this point in our life today and will also affect how we look toward the things of the future. If we learn from the things of the past, we can step forward in confidence in the things that we don't know about yet, which all falls down to trusting Yah in everything. But when it comes to things like this past ninth of Av, wow, I mean, so much destruction, so much hatred, so much just trying to destroy the people of Yah. And we have a hard time identifying with a lot of that. I don't think there's anything here in America, especially, that we have faced as a people set apart that would compare.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can't just flippantly say, oh, yeah, I identify, because we kind of really don't. So how can we step forward saying, well, I receive, if you will, this past so that I can look to the future to see the restoration. I mean, if we talk about restoration all the time, we talk about the Father bringing us to a place of being restored and recreated, new life, and all these great things. But when we talk restoration, how do we know what we're to be restored to if we don't look at the things of the past?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When you restore a car, or restore a house, restore something, you're not completely moving it completely away from what it was. You're bringing it back to a state of its, if you will, former glory.
So, in regards to our brother Yehuda, as you mentioned, on the ninth of Av, both temples were destroyed. And the Chronicle of Jewish History would list a long list of tragic, very destructive things. The Spanish Inquisition, for instance, was tied to the ninth of Av. A horrible, horrible time period for our brothers, the Jews. When you read the prophetic scriptures, they talk in regards to things that would be judgments, but also restorations that would take place after the judgments. There is not only a warning that if you turn from my ways, these things will happen to you, but also there is the promise of restoration. So the negative is tied to the promise of the positive. As the temples were destroyed, there is a promise of a future temple. If we want to be a part of that future temple, and I do, then I need to be aware of the destruction of the previous temples. I may not know and understand all of the intricate protocols of activity in the priesthood pertaining to those two temples. It's not that it can't be learned, but even if I don't know all of those in and outs and minute details, that which is yet to come, I can still be a part of that. That's part of Yehuda's future. If I'm going to be restored to Yehuda, then I need to be aware of what Yehuda's future is going to be. Yehuda needs to be aware of what my future is going to be so that we can share the same future. We have been separated long enough. In a very casual glance, we can look at our past and say, well, we have two different roads in the past. Our histories are two different histories, but we have a common expectation for the future. That means that we got to learn to relate together. And that also means that we need to be aware of where each side has hurt, been hurt, and needs to be healed and needs to be restored. So on the ninth of Av, it's appropriate that the house of Israel, the house of Ephraim, that we weep and that we mourn. But as I saw a common friend, a mutual friend between us, who is Jewish, mentioned yesterday, it's hard to mourn when you have an expectancy for the future.
Wow, those are great words.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing. I'm going back here as we look. Zechariah again, chapter 8. It kind of all talks. It all fits in here together. But we're looking in restoration, and it says these things like, in these days, right? We're talking, these days when things are being brought back and restored. All people, towards the end of the chapter here, that all people from all nations will come to seek Yahweh Tzavaot in Yerushalayim. And he says that 10 men from the nations of every tongue will take hold of the robe of Yehudi, saying, "We're going to go with you because we've heard that Elohim is with you." Now, the thing I find very interesting about this is a lot of times when you talk about the nations, you hear them referenced as the 70 nations. But here it says 10 men from the nations. So where do we have this reference of 10 and all the nations being in every tongue? How about Israel that was scattered? The 10 tribes that were sent into all the earth, all the world, those that were exiled, will return and grab hold of someone who is a Yehudi, someone who is a Jew, saying, "We will go with you. We've heard that Elohim is with you." Who is this Jew that we're going to grab hold of to say, "We're going to return to Israel with you"?
Mm.
This is us grabbing hold of Yeshua. And when we look to us being brought in with him and our relationship with Yeshua, we cannot disassociate that with Israel and the things that have happened to Israel.
No.
And so we have to learn some empathy. And we have to learn, in order to bring a restoration between brothers, sometimes that's a long process where we have to learn to die to ourselves.
Oh, don't say that. We got to do that.
Do we have time to go into something like that?
Oh, die to self. Oh no. Has it come to that? Yes. Well, maybe.
But that is true. When we start to humble ourselves and see that these things that have happened to Israel, do we mourn for the things that happened to our brother? Scripture says, "Rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep." When something happens to our brother, it happens to us. And when we look at these things that have happened in the past to Israel, do we find that we do associate with that?
Yeshua gave us a principle that when we have fed the hungry, clothed the naked, healed the sick, visited those in prison, and as much as we've done to the least of these, that we have done it unto him. The process by which we identify with others in their time of need and find a way to try to meet that need, he says, is activity that reflects my heart. That's what I do. That's my ministry. So concerning the need of our brother Yehuda, discerning what that need is, having empathy, as you say, compassion, sharing in that need, seeking to alleviate that need, in as much as we have mourned with Yehuda in the times of their travesty, we have also then done it unto Yeshua.
Wow. Barry, I can't see a better way for a final thought. Honestly, we're about at that time. So good words for reflection, brother. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
So with that, guys, we love to hear your feedback, your thoughts, your concerns, your questions, things you'd like to hear on Midrashes coming up in the future. If you have anything you'd like to let us know, please let us know at reunionroadmap@b'nai yosef na.com. Shalom, everyone.
Shalom.